Yeah. So you were teaching philosophy and moving on in your life, getting your doctoral degree in philosophy and continuing on working and as a skeptical towards God.
Right?
What was it what was it in your life that caused you to start becoming skeptical of your own skepticism towards God?
Right. Um, a number of different things. And I go over this, intermediate period, uh, basically between graduate school and like 2020. So a period of about 20 years or so. And one thing that happened is I got married
Mm,
and had a child, now two, and I reflected that I would die for these people, of course, um, if I had to, and that meant that I put their interests ahead of mine. Um, you might say, "Well, what difference does that make?" Well, it so happens that um, in my youth, between the ages of about 16 and 26, I was interested in the philosophy of Ayn Rand. Her ethical theory is called ethical egoism, which basically says what we ought to do is determined by our own self interest, our enlightened, rational self interest, but our own interest. But when I had a wife and a child, I discovered, yes, I would like sacrifice all of my interests dying um, for theirs. Well, that means that I'm not um, acting on my behalf, I'm acting on their behalf. Um, and so I guess I'm not an ethical egoist. And that gave me one less reason to believe in anything regarding Ayn Rand. I was never a dogmatic follower of Ayn Rand, quite the contrary. In that community, I was kind of a gadfly because they tended to be very dogmatic themselves. But nevertheless, she was an atheist. Because she was an atheist, that sort of confirmed me in my atheism. Another reason that I had for agnosticism was what I called the no concept view of uh, of God. That basically, I argued that we cannot really have a concept of God at all because what God is supposed to be is a creator out of nothing with a thought. He's
mm,
whatever God is supposed to be. He's supposed to be a mind or a soul that creates things out of nothing with a thought. Well, we have no experience of that. We have no idea what that could possibly mean, and therefore we don't know what God is. There's actually something to that argument, I would say. It's just that the conclusion that I can't have any concept of God doesn't follow, but I
mm.
thought it did. Later, I came up with, I guess this is about 2017, I came up with the following argument. We can imagine a world in the not too distant future in which AI is so advanced that it develops itself and becoming both self-aware and improving itself with various robots and whatnot. You can imagine some sort of entity evolving out of this for 1 billion years, which has the capacity. I mean, just imagine how much difference there is between where we are today and where we were 1,000 years ago, and then extrapolate that 1 billion years from now. Isn't it possible that we some descendant race species entity um, would have the ability to create like planets and planets, then maybe stars, and then you know what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if it's really true, might not be, but it's conceivable. And if it's conceivable, then what we're conceiving of is a creator. And then all you have to do in order to get the notion of a real creator is say, well, that sort of being which has the sort of hookups necessary to create a universe with a thought, um, well, that is all you have to do is say that that sort of being already existed, has always existed, and there
Hmm.
you have the notion of God. Um, so one by one, and I won't give any more examples unless you want me to. My reasons to disbelieve that God existed, the reasons for resistance, so to speak, they just fell by the wayside.
Wow. Yeah. That again, as someone who's intellectually honest, with integrity towards truth seeking, it sounds like again you were willing to say the possibility of God is viable option on the table when you consider these things that you were really working through intellectually. I'm curious. This is just a random question. As someone who's obviously very brilliant, and you rely a lot on your reason to draw conclusions and to really consider these larger questions that you were considering and that were actually moving you away perhaps from skepticism, did you ever question the rationality of your own mind in terms of its grounding? If we're born of blind, purposeless processes, how can we trust our own reason or rationality?
So first of all, I would disagree that I'm particularly brilliant. I'm pretty average sort of intellectual, um, but
You're
I
humble.
I would say that it's a very good question, actually. My area of specialization when I was an academic was epistemology, and that is one of the questions that uh, epistemology has considered. I like what Reid says about it, Reid, the founder of the Scottish School of Common Sense. Um, and I don't know if I can remember the precise quote, but it's something like this. Um, he must be a fool or would want to make a fool of me. He would try to reason me out of my reason and senses.
Mm,
Um, that essentially, if we do not have a rock bottom um, trust in the ability of human reason, um, then there's no point in talking at all or trying to reason at all. So it's a methodological assumption. And that actually is something that I remember um, thinking about and deciding about when I was a teenager, like when I was
mm.
17 years old. I remember that. I had forgotten, but I remember it now. That yes, one of the things that is a rock bottom assumption that I can't dispense with is the notion that the truth is findable, at least to some limited degree, with human reason. What else have we got?
So as you were your skepticism, you were beginning to say perhaps, well, God may be possible. Is there something there? If
Yeah.
you were willing to move down that road to take a closer look or to scrutinize further. How did that work its way out? What did you do about uh, this openness, not this potentiality, I guess you could say,
Uh-huh.
in terms of the possibility of God? What did you do with that?
Let's put it this way. I was no less an agnostic in the sense that I didn't feel myself like drifting toward belief. I
Mm,
didn't, even like in November 2019, that had not changed.
right.
Um, all I'm saying is that a lot of the reasons that I had earlier no longer were reasons for me to to reject belief.